All right, we're here with Troy Trussell. How you doing, Troy?
Hey, good, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to be in the studio. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, thanks for coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my name's Troy Trussell. I own Trussell Media. It's a video production company here in Wichita, and we do a lot of things as it pertains to video and podcasting. So that's kind of a little bit about me and my business. Yeah. I am a local foodie, though, because I love to eat good food. That's something that's in my everyday life. It's good
Absolutely.
food.
Yeah. I think that's where I kind of first saw your stuff. I think Live Local was just, doing some of the food reviews and stuff like that. So that makes sense. So tell us a little bit about, like, what's your connection to Wichita? How long you been here? Are you from here? What's that look like?
Oh, yeah. So we are not actually from here, my family and I grew up in Shreveport, Louisiana. So I was born there, lived there. Good food, really good food. I love crawfish. Is probably my favorite thing to eat still. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I grew up in Shreveport, Louisiana. I lived there for 30 years. Got married about a year before we moved up to Wichita. And Wichita kind of wasn't ever on the radar. Never really heard about it. But 4 years prior to us moving here, my sister and her family, they moved up here because my brother-in-law worked for a large marketing company, or not marketing, but manufacturing company up here. And so I was sending out resumes to different cities because we wanted to get out of Shreveport. And Wichita said, hey, if you move here, we'll interview you. Mm-hmm. And that was that was the only positive feedback I was getting from any of my resumes.
Sure.
Anywhere, because we were sending stuff to New Orleans, Dallas, Oklahoma, just everywhere. Yeah. And so sent some to Wichita because I had family here and people wanted to talk to me, so here we came. That was back in 2011. So we've been here 11 years.
Very cool. Yeah. And this was videography, graphic design related work, or?
It was video related work, but I got hired on as my first job as a marketing director for a background screening firm here in town. Okay. So
awesome. Yeah. Very cool. So how does the food compare to Louisiana?
Now, Midwestern food as a whole, if you don't get out and look for all the good culture, food, and restaurants out there, from a Louisianan, it's pretty bland. Mm-hmm. So I've always had to add a little spice to it. And when we first moved up here, there's a seasoning called Tony's Saturé, and they didn't have it here. Walmart didn't even carry it here back then. And so a couple years into it, it started popping up and showing up at Walmarts and stuff. Yeah. Before that, I was having my parents mail it to me.
Oh yeah, for sure. You have to. You got to get your fix somehow.
Exactly.
Amazon or somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think a lot of people. I mean, the food scene in Wichita is very diverse, and I think there's people that. I mean, I love Freddy's. I love some of the basic stuff, which our brewing company. But then, like a couple of days ago, my brother just went down to Mexico. Before he left, we went to, I don't even know how you say it. It's one of the pupusa places.
Oh yeah,
and it's amazing. I'd never had a pupusa before.
Pupusas are
there's
very
like
good.
3 or 4 Salvadorian restaurants right there on that street. And like, this is crazy. Like, I didn't even know about this, and I've been here most of my life. So.
Yeah, so we did a video at one of them for Live Local, and Darren and I. On the show, we were cutting it with a knife and a fork. And to this day, I think we put that video up a year and a half ago. I got a comment the other day that said, stop using like silverware when you eat a pupusa. Just pick it up with your hands.
Okay.
Like, it's like a big thing.
I was going to ask because my brother was using a fork. And I was like, I was just going to grab it with my hand. And he's like, he doesn't know. I mean, we don't know.
Well, we didn't know either.
But now I know. Okay.
Yeah. So
it makes sense because it's all on the inside. So why wouldn't you just grab with your hands?
I know. And I feel like, I don't know. It felt like we really did something wrong, right? Because people were just blasting that video, and hey, even negative comments on a video like that on YouTube is good for the video. So I was just like, yeah, we got it.
That's funny.
We'll pick it up next time.
I've heard some people do that. I listened to a couple of podcasts that do they throw it up on TikTok and stuff, and they'll say things or type things intentionally wrong. Because they know they're going to get that feedback, and then they can play dumb in the comments back, so they're getting double the feedback and engagement boosts it. But
yeah, that's funny.
So Trussell Media, you started that. Were you running that prior to moving to Wichita?
It's evolved. Yeah. I'll say that because I worked for an advertising firm in Shreveport, and I did weddings. I shot weddings on the side with one of the guys that I worked there. We used the company's camera equipment because the boss said,
Yeah.
hey, I want to make some extra money on the weekends. Yeah, you can use it.
Perfect.
Go shoot weddings.
Yeah.
So I started doing that back in 2004. And when we moved, I still had cameras, and I kind of did it as a side hustle when I was the director of marketing for the other company. So that's kind of how Trussell Media started. And since then, it's just evolved into to what it is today.
So you started out videography. I was looking at the website a little bit, drone videography, YouTube management, podcast production, and then just kind of general other videography. What was how did that snowball? So it started out with weddings. What was next, and where are you at today?
Yeah, so weddings was a big part of our revenue stream up until 2020 when everything went crazy, right? And so I knew I had to pivot and figure out a way to make money, not relying on weddings.
Right.
And so the real estate market opened up for me then, because realtors couldn't go show houses during the pandemic. And so we were going in making videos of houses for their listings. And so that side of it kind of blew up for me. Then I started thinking, well, why don't I just get back into doing videos for businesses? Because I used to do it at the advertising agency. Why don't I do that with Trussell Media? And so that's kind of where I jumped in.
Yeah.
And right before the shutdown and everything, I joined a BNI networking group here in Wichita and have made a lot of huge connections there in the community. And that is really what kind of sparked the Trussell Media to be back in making videos for businesses. So.
For sure. And so when you say make videos for business, is this like a video that just goes up on their website? This kind of like, I don't know, kind of cool B-roll footage? Is it them talking to the camera? What does that look like?
Yeah, so we can do all kinds of videos for businesses. That's one of the main ones. Like you mentioned, there's informational videos that they can put on their homepage of their website. They can cut it up. They can use snippets of it for their social media content. We also do client testimonials because everybody loves a good Google review, right? And that gets a lot of searchability. But if you put that Google review into a video that people can watch, and we can cut those up again into like 60-second reels, you can share those all over your social media, and people, you have clients talking good about your business. That's some of the best advertising you can have. So.
For sure. So you mentioned real estate. Who's your ideal client? Like, is it a specific type of business, any type of business? What does that look like?
It's really, I would say the people we go after are people that are really into marketing themselves.
Yeah.
If they have a presence on social media where they're just posting pictures or just putting out content that's not necessarily video, or maybe it is video and they're doing it themselves and they're ready to upgrade to some more quality, videos out there, that's kind of who we go after.
Oh yeah, for sure. That makes sense.
Yeah.
What part do you enjoy the most? Do you enjoy the shooting, doing the podcast stuff, editing this stuff? Where do you feel most comfortable?
Yeah. I like going out and shooting and being with the client and creating the content. That is probably the most fun for me. Yeah. Is because I get to, I like being around people in small settings. Yeah. I don't like large crowds and stuff, but I love this, and I love meeting new people and getting to know them and about their business. And man, if they love food, like we can talk all day.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I had a potential client come in here the other day, and we just hit it off immediately because we both have Little Saigon is our favorite place to eat. Yeah. And so he was like, "Man, you got to order this dish because my son orders it." And so just learning about other people's businesses and their life and what they do is what I love.
I can definitely empathize with the smaller group, being a little more comfortable, and love being around people, but just smaller groups for sure. Yeah. While you touch on Little Saigon, do you have a go-to dish there? Yeah. My wife was just talking about it the other day. So
yeah, I love B8.
B8, okay.
Yeah, it's a noodle dish with the lettuce in it. It comes with shrimp and an egg roll, and then the sweet sauce that you pour onto it. But I always eat the egg roll with the sweet sauce first. And then you got to pinch the tails off the shrimp to mix it all up in there. And then that's how I eat it, man. It's so good. It's my favorite. It's probably my favorite dish in Wichita.
I might have to get that. I think we're going to go next week. So I'll definitely give that one a try.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
What does your team look like? Is it just you? Do you have some people? What does that look like?
So for the most part, it's me, but I do have an editor that works alongside me on certain projects. And we had a salesperson last year, but she had to step away, hoping to get her back soon.
Sure.
But we are actually looking right now for a salesperson. So if you know anybody, send them.
That's the bat signal. If you see it, come on down.
If you have sales experience, we'd love to talk to you. So, but yeah, over this past year, I would say we've had our most growth.
Good.
So I've had to hire an editor to help me out, and it's not slowing down. So video is here to stay, and
good to hear.
And I'm excited about that.
Yeah, business is good.
Yeah.
What do you have you do the short form, the testimonials and stuff like that. How do you look at kind of TikTok versus Reels versus Shorts? Do you just make the video and blast it? Do you put more effort into one or the other?
Yeah. Well, I always tell companies when I meet with them, the first place you want to put your video is on YouTube. Because YouTube is really, it's the most watched video platform still today out there, being 80% over the other ones. So I tell them to host, banging on my microphone here. I tell them to host the videos on YouTube, so you have a platform that you can create a channel. You can have a link to each video to share out, whether it be to your website. Yep. We don't tell people to share links on other social media because social media platforms, they want you to stay on that social media platform.
Yeah, they'll throttle it. Yeah.
Yeah. So we tell them, upload to YouTube first so you can share to your website. You can create shorts on there to drive people to your channel. And then the same content that you put on YouTube, we just tell everybody to upload that directly to Facebook and Instagram. And if they're into TikTok, do it. I personally don't have a lot of clients that do TikTok.
Right.
But if you're really wanting to reach the younger audiences, that's what people are saying where you need to be. So
it's a hard balance for me. Wichita life is, live local, Wichita life, kind of similar deal. Yeah. It's like, if you go viral on TikTok, it's awesome. It's cool, but it's not, how many people live in Wichita? You know what I mean? Like, it's cool because you're drawing attention to Wichita, I guess, but it's like, how much is a view worth that's outside of Wichita? I don't know. It's hard to measure that versus Instagram following is hopefully people in town or something like that. But that's something I'm always thinking about. Yeah. What sets you apart from other videographers in town?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'd probably answer that by saying experience. Yeah. And we try to do the best quality video, tell the best story that we can. Even with our client testimonials, those can be hard to blend together from different people's answers to actually tell a story. But I feel like myself and my editor that I have working with me, we do that pretty well. And really, I learned how to do storytelling through filming wedding videos.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if you can take the bride and groom story of how they met and get them to tell the story of how they met and everything, and then piece that together with the beautiful images you get of their day, it can be a masterpiece.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
I've seen some of those, beautiful wedding videos.
Yeah.
Something that always made me, not make me nervous, but would make me nervous if I shot weddings is some of those moments you don't get a second chance to, if you're shooting a video testimonial for a business, you could shoot it 1,000 times, but a wedding, it's if you miss their first kiss after they've been kind of pronounced, that would make me nervous. But
yeah, it's true. The first few years I was doing it, that always came into play. I got to get this stuff downloaded because what if it breaks? We used to shoot on Mini 8 tapes, so it's before digital. And it's man, I hope this tape doesn't break, or there's always that fear. I have a recurring dream that, especially when I was shooting weddings full time, that I would show up to a wedding and I wouldn't have all my gear. And I would be running around hand holding a camera and tripods falling over. And I still have it today. It's
still waking up from thinking you missed a test. Haven't been in school forever, but you still have that dream.
Yeah.
I had a friend that actually was shooting weddings while she was going through school, and that happened. Her file got corrupted or whatever happened, lost everything. That would be my worst nightmare, having to tell a client, I lost everything for your big day, and that'd be a nightmare.
Yeah, that would hurt.
I am skeptical of technology still, when I'm recording my own podcast. So for a while, I was just doing like on my phone. I would set it on the table and we'd use the voice memo for the first, I don't know, 10 or 12 podcasts.
Yeah.
And so I was recording with Jake Wayman, actually.
Oh, yeah.
And we were at Panera, which was a terrible location because it was 6 a.m. as soon as they opened, and they had the overhead music, but it was like my fourth pint. I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
So there was definitely like some like coffee shop Panera music over the background. But I would stop it every 15 or 20 minutes just to make sure it saved in case I lost part of it. I don't lose everything. So the first 15 minutes, smooth. The next chunk, I hit pause and it should save, and it just disappeared.
Oh gosh.
And so I'm like, oh my gosh. And so we like redid it, but like the second time through is not as good. Like it's not as authentic. I'm asking the same questions. He's trying to give the same answer.
Right.
Still a great interview, but it wasn't as good. And then we record the end. It was great. I go home or go to work or whatever, and it appeared. It had like gone up to the cloud and then came back. So I was just like, oh my gosh, so I'm always like super skeptical of technology, but you've got a great setup. So this makes me at ease. But
good.
You put out these short form clips on Instagram specifically is where I've seen them, giving kind of tips for whatever that is, business or just video tips. I think that also helps you stand out. I think it's kind of like proving your expertise almost while providing like free tips.
Yeah.
What are some of those tips, or what are common mistakes that people make with content?
The first thing I think people do is they don't create content, right? And that was me for a long time in the industry. You know, I've said before, like the barber always has the worst haircut because he doesn't have time to cut his own hair, right? Because he's always busy cutting hair. Well, it's the same thing in our industry. It's hard to find time to make videos for your business when, you know, you're always out shooting videos or editing videos for clients that you've already made. So I have a client, her name's Leslie. She's a realtor, and I started working with her last March, and she started doing these videos where she talks in front of the camera, just talking about her industry and being a realtor and giving tips to buyers, sellers, other real estate agents, all this stuff. And in, I think 3 months, she got so popular that Facebook, you know, started paying her for her reels.
That's awesome.
The max amount that she could get. And so she was like, well, this is great. Now I got you paid for. Let's keep going. Let's keep on going and see what we can do. And so I think, you know, I guess we're at 10 months now or 9 months in. She has hit, a couple of videos have hit over 1 million.
That's amazing.
1 million views. And so I was looking at that and I'm like, we sit down for 2 to 3 hours once a month. She cranks out 60 videos and she's got really good at it.
Right. She
cranks them out and then posts them 2 a day. And this has catapulted her to be like the top social, or the top realtor on social media, at least in the Wichita area. And, you know, I was looking at that like, man, why am I not doing this? I know some things. I don't know everything, but I know some things that'll help some people. And so I just started creating content. And so right now, I think I have some content that I put out with me just talking about tips. And then also I did a bunch of client testimonials for Trussell Media. So clients that I've helped do videos for, and I'm kind of rotating those in and out with me giving tips and stuff. So
that's a great idea. That's super cool. I haven't heard about that. That's really cool. That's a great example of how, the power of the internet. And that's cool.
Yeah.
What do you wish you knew when you started Trussell Media that you know now, besides just pump out content?
Yeah, that's funny you asked that, because I made a video the other day talking about, man, I wish I had the maturity that I have now back in my 20s. And I used to think about that a lot, but I don't need to dwell on the past. I need to focus on the present today so that when I'm in the future, I can be proud of what I'm doing today. So just focus is kind of,
I love that,
where I've been.
I love that. Yeah. We'll shift gears just a little bit. Live Local. Tell us a little bit about Live Local.
So Live Local started with my love of food. And so a good friend of mine, Darren Hackney, he's a photographer in town here. We used to meet up and go eat tacos just at random places, you know, hole in the walls that are like, is this place condemned? And then you open the door and it's like, oh, it's a really nice establishment. You know, like El Fogon is one of those places. Yep. Phenomenal tacos, but it just looks kind of sketchy on the outside. But we would go meet up for tacos, and I had this idea like, hey, why don't we film this and just share this with people? It'll give, you know, people of Wichita a new place to go eat, and then it'll shine some light on the restaurant that may need some help. And we started in 2019, and we kept going through the pandemic because we thought, this is like one of the best times to shine light on these places. And so in our quest for good tacos, it just kind of turned into, let's just hit as many restaurants as we can.
Yeah.
And eat some good food and share it with Wichita and hopefully surrounding areas and other places.
Yeah, for sure. And I love the content. Did it start out as Live Local, or did you put it out? Did you guys put it out? What did that?
Yeah, it started out as Live Local, and actually my wife came up with that name because she was like, well, what if it ever expanded beyond Wichita? Let's not name it something Wichita. I mean, it is definitely Wichita based and has, I think it always will be.
Right.
But she was like, let's just call it Live Local or something. Yeah, yeah. And I was like, that's great.
For sure. Well, also, like, what if you just go on a trip for a week or two or something, and like food was the focus? You could do, Live Local wherever, KC or New York or whatever it is.
Yeah. I actually did that. We went back to Shreveport.
Yeah.
I had to go back, unfortunately, for a funeral. But I went to one of my favorite spots there, and I had my sister just film me on my phone because that's all we had. I didn't travel with all my gear and stuff. And it turned out great. Yeah. So we were living local in Shreveport.
Very cool. So. Do you get any weird looks when you got the camera around the food and talking to camera and all that?
Yeah. Yeah, I do get people looking at me and stuff. And that's been a big hurdle for me to jump because I'm pretty introverted and I don't like to draw a lot of attention to myself.
I get that.
And when I got a camera sitting on the table and I'm eating, people are staring. And when Darren's with me, it makes it a lot easier because we're kind of tag teaming it. And
he's also super bubbly, so he's a little more outgoing. Yeah.
He does bring a good comedy element to the videos for sure.
Yeah.
So
that's funny. Yeah, because I'll do. I mean, a lot of people in time to kind of do them now, but the little reels, just walking around new restaurants that or new to me, and kind of share those, or donut places. I go to donut places a lot with my daughter, and so we share those. But I don't even talk over the top. So it's like the 2 seconds of somebody seeing me do that versus like having a camera actually pointing at you eating it would be a whole nother step up. You guys are almost at 1,000 YouTube subscribers.
We're so close.
Congrats. I looked at that this morning. Let's try to get push you over.
Yeah. I think we're at like 859.
859. I looked this morning. So that's what I have written down. Was that pretty consistent? Do you think like posting a lot of shorts, did that boost it up? What contributed the most?
I think, for about 2 years, we were pretty consistent with doing one video a week. And then when shorts came out on YouTube, we started posting a lot of those, and that did boost it quite a bit. Over the past 2 or 3 months, Darren and I have both gotten so busy with like I'm busy with Trussell Media. He's busy with
actual work.
Yeah, like actual work where we get like real dollars, right? Because I think we've made like $20 on Live Local. Yeah. We just do it for the fun of it. Yeah. And so we got so busy. I think we posted one video every 2 months, over the past half year. So, but we're getting back into it. We got some good ideas to moving forward, changing up the content a little bit. Sure. So,
well, you can speak on that if you want, or just what are some of the other food challenges you've done, that kind of thing. I'll bring up first the hot wing challenge, kind of the hot ones version. You guys had me on, and I'll definitely share that again. That was a lot of fun. I love that type of stuff.
Yeah, that was fun. I think we called it the hot wings challenge or the chicken wing challenge because we didn't want to totally rip off hot ones.
Yeah.
But of course, that's where we got the idea. But we interviewed you and Jillian Carroll and Samantha Lucerini and a couple other people, Ben Myers. Yeah. We have a good series of that on the YouTube channel, and we're going to do Fayola, Mr. Wichita himself soon. So that'll be coming out. But we do that. And, just some other series that we've thought about. We haven't filmed them yet. We've thought about doing kind of like a secret shopper, but I mean, it's going to be hard to do with a camera, but something like that to kind of make them a little bit more fun. Yeah.
I think I always see like it'll be the most random stuff in like a random city, and I'm like, oh man, I want to recreate that for Wichita. Yeah. And so I was just listening to a podcast. Actually hadn't seen very many of these clips, but this guy, I think his name's Caleb Simpson, but he walks around New York and he says, "How much do you pay for rent?" Because, I mean, in New York, it's probably more applicable. But then he like goes to their house and tours their apartment or their house or whatever. And so it's like, okay, what does that look like in Wichita? Because I think there was another, I don't know who puts these out, Zillow or whatever. But like Wichita is like the #1 most affordable place. But it's like let's show that. What does that look like? Like, how much are you paying for it at a downtown apartment in Wichita versus New York? Like, it's $800 versus 5,000 or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just, I always like, how can I apply that? I haven't done a lot of those, but I have a document that's just way too long of ideas.
Right.
But yeah, for sure. I guess, do you have any other specific big plans for that coming up, or is it just hopefully putting out more content with the local scene?
Yeah, hopefully putting out more content. Another idea that we're tossing around is doing a podcast with local chefs and just talking about food and what's coming up, what do they see coming up in the industry? Because I mean, Wichita, I feel like the coasts, the east and west coast of the United States, like that's where all the things, the cool hip things start, and then they kind of move into centrally, right?
Slowly but surely, yeah.
And I feel like Wichita is a place that does things last, or like we're like 8 years behind everybody else or something.
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah. So just talking to chefs and local chefs and hearing like what they're seeing and what's coming up, I think would be like a fun series to do.
No, I love that. And I love the idea of like niching down further and further. So it's like, there's interview podcasts, and there's interview podcasts in Wichita. There's an interview podcast with business owners, and now you're like chefs specifically. I love that idea of like just niching down, like those. I think that's where you get the most traction. And I don't know. Yeah. I've always heard that's kind of the way to go. Speaking of podcasts, sitting in your podcast studio again, if you guys are interested, hit up Troy.
Yes.
What's your history with podcasts? You have the Hard Headed podcast. Talk a little bit about that. What else? Background. Yeah.
So it's funny you mentioned the voice recorder on the phone, because the first podcast I ever did was back at the advertising agency in Shreveport. Another designer and myself, we just, noticed the voice memo on there and was like, man, what if we did this silly show? And every episode, I think, was like 3 to 5 minutes long. And we called it the Troy and Travis Show. And it was Troy and Travis hosted the show. And we always made fun of this other girl that was not made fun of her, but had fun with her on the show. And we did voices. So we did like all these from like 80s cartoons, like Skeletor and He-Man and all. It was just so dumb. But it was a lot of fun for us. And we had our email and everything out there to where you could contact us. And one day we got an email from like Richmond, Virginia, of somebody that was like, hey, we love your show.
That's so funny.
Keep it up, guys. And that was back in 2007.
Wow. You could have been Joe Rogan.
I could have been. But that's kind of where it awesome. Started.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun. And then once we moved up here, I did a show. We were filming a hunting show with me and four or five other guys. And along with that show, we did a podcast. Yeah. And so that's kind of the first professional podcast that we did. We did it in a recording studio. Yeah. One of the guys in his basement, his parents like had this set up, and it was awesome. So we did that. And then from that's kind of where the Hard Headed podcast came from. Because when that hunting show was no more, two of the guys that were in that hunting show and did that podcast, we had so much fun doing that podcast, we created the Hard Headed podcast.
Nice.
And so we've been doing it for 2 years. We release every Thursday at 4 p.m.
Still actively releasing?
Still actively releasing. It's called the Hard Headed podcast. And on it, it's me and my brother-in-law and another friend of ours, Matt Amos. And we talk about, news, politics, stuff that just grinds our gears. That's why it's called Hard Headed.
Yeah.
And then we have another segment called Top 3, where we talk about top 3 favorite things or top 3 things we hate. Just any subject could be there. And then we end it with a good word, whether it's, something from the Bible, like a devotion or just positive thoughts.
Sure.
So
I love that.
Just kind of, it takes the course of a conversation, right? Normally you meet somebody, you talk about what's going on in the world, and you may talk about some things that you dislike or love.
Right.
And then you always want to end a conversation with a good word. So that's kind of where it came from.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have goals with that, or is that just weekly kind of talk shop?
Yeah, it's kind of a weekly talk shop. Lately, we've been trying to get more downloads on it, of course. And we've been pulling, so we're on YouTube and anywhere you can get podcasts, Apple, Spotify, all of them. But with the YouTube stuff, because we do video as well, we've been making a lot of shorts with it and posting on Instagram and Facebook, just to kind of drive traffic to the actual audio podcast itself. So
that's something I want to talk about. So how do you look at or weigh or think about audio for the podcast versus like a YouTube view versus like a short view? Because like shorts probably going to get the most views or impressions, however you want to look at it.
Right.
And then it probably whittles down. Audio is very hard to get. Podcasts are notoriously hard to grow. So how do you look at kind of, okay, cool, it got 1,000 views on a short, I got 15 views on a video, and then I got 10 down. You know what I mean? How do you look at that?
Yeah. So when we post a short, Chet, he's my brother-in-law. He's really good at looking at the analytics and everything. So when we post a short, we did one last week. It got like 1.4 thousand views.
Right.
Overnight. So we post all of our shorts at 8 p.m. because we figure the people that are scrolling during the night.
Before bed, yeah.
Yeah. So we post them at 8 p.m. and then we look at the analytics of our downloads for that Thursday when the show actually launches on Apple. And then, last week we were like, all right, we got 4 more downloads on top of our average. And so we've been seeing growth, and we just started doing this really about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So we've been seeing growth with that, and that's really just how we, and analyze it, I guess.
That's cool.
Say.
Yeah, I'd be curious because it's almost like there's almost a service there or something that you could do, because I think it is hard to attribute like, okay, number goes up hopefully, but it's like, yeah, how do you tie that back to any one thing? But that's a great way to do it. Like kind of like be consistent about the timing, check on a regular basis and see if it, compared to the average. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
That's super interesting. Something I did hear that might be coming along is YouTube is supposedly getting their own podcast app or podcast portion of the app.
Yes, I've heard that. There is, I don't know the link offhand, but according to the Think Media podcast, which is a podcast I listen to about my industry and being on YouTube, they have shared that, if you type in a certain URL, youtube.com/podcast or something like that, they're already setting it up.
Right.
Because YouTube wants to be the platform for video podcasts.
They are the king of search. I think being tied with Google and then just being like kind of evergreen and tied, because it's not impossible, almost impossible to like, I don't know, search podcasts. Like it's basically like you hear about it from another podcast or you hear about it from your friend and that's how you download it. It's very hard to like, search it. But if it's YouTube and you search a specific person or topic and then a list of podcasts comes up and then you're like, oh, I really like this, like you would a YouTube channel, that would be awesome. Yeah,
because if you could put in there like local Wichita podcasts and have them all pop up, because if you put that in the Apple, you're going to get stuff from all over the place.
Right. That ties with just local, that ties with just Wichita, that ties with anything.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I do believe that is coming down the pike for sure.
Talk tech stuff just for a second.
Yeah.
What's your tech stack? So like if you're going out for a shoot, what kind of camera are you using for this podcast studio? What kind of setup do you have? Anything like that?
Yeah. So honestly, I'm not too
You don't have to go super in the weeds because I don't know any of this stuff.
Yeah.
I use my phone for all the videos. So just anything.
I'm not a crazy gearhead. Okay. But I do like a good DSLR when I'm on the run and gun. And so I use it's a kind of an older camera, but it's a Canon 5D Mark IV.
Okay. I have heard of that. So
yeah.
Good start.
So it's a really good camera. Since then since I got that one, they've come out with a bunch of mirrorless ones and stuff that I plan to upgrade to soon. But it works for me. Yeah. It still has super clean, crisp picture, good quality. And then what I'm filming this on now is this thing's been with me for a while. I mean, it's an old camera. It's the Canon C100 series.
Okay.
And it's an actual video camera, so it's not a DSLR, but it does you can change out the lenses and stuff to whatever you're shooting on.
Very cool.
But I use it for the podcast because it doesn't turn off. One thing about DSLR cameras, most of them will cut out at like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So you
haven't done anything.
Yeah, you have to hit the record button again. So
it's a pain.
Yeah. So that's kind of my run and gun.
Yeah. And then drone photography. Again, I used to be, I've never had like a nice drone, but I used to watch like Casey Neistat videos and I'd get really into like looking what the newest drones are. But what kind of drone do you use?
Yeah. I use the DJI Mavic 2 Pro.
Yeah.
And DJI they've always
been the best.
Yeah. They always come out with the most advanced, best quality drone that I've seen.
Sure.
So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Cool. Before we kind of get to these questions that I ask everybody, do you have anything else to touch on with Live Local or Trussell Media?
I'll just say for Live Local, we love to hear from people. And if they know of some spots that we haven't hit, man, hit us up or throw a comment on one of the videos and I'll see it. And we'll make it a point to go out to that place and check out that restaurant and shine some light on some places that people might not know.
Absolutely. So these next kind of group of questions I stole from Tim Ferriss and a couple other podcasts I've listened to.
Yeah.
So what is something you often recommend to people, whether it's books, podcasts, anything like that, TV shows?
Podcasts, I recommend the Unashamed podcast to a lot of people. It's the Duck Dynasty boys.
That's right. I was like, I know I've heard of that. Okay.
Yeah. So they're from my neck of the woods. They grew up in Monroe, which is about an hour and a half from Shreveport. So, but they have a really good podcast. They're funny guys. If you liked Duck Dynasty,
sure,
you'll love their podcast. But they really dive into scripture a lot. So it's a good way to get a good Bible study in with them, and that's something that I do and love, and so they're a really good podcast, really good source for that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's good too, because I think a lot of podcasts don't have that, right? I think most of the podcasts, I have to go out of my way most of the time from like the normal podcast feed to find anything like that. So that's cool.
Yeah, it's a really good one.
What is your favorite failure in any aspect of your life?
Failure. Wow. I feel like, I will say in business, running my own business, I feel like I've failed being stuck in a cycle to where I do really good and then I do really bad and then I do really good and I get stuck in this cycle. But the good thing is I noticed it and I did some things to fight that, right? Mm-hmm. So I hired a business coach about a year and a half ago, and he, through the time and noticing the things that I'm doing, it's just having an outside source to show you and help you, hold your hand along the way to break cycles that are making you fail in life, like, has been really good for me.
Sure. Yeah.
But noticing that was the key.
Absolutely. So, what is your definition of success?
Success, I would definitely say there's a financial aspect to that, but it's a lot more than that. It's for me personally, it's serving people to where they can use the content that we create through Trussell Media to really get their message out there to help more people. Mm-hmm. So I look at our business as kind of like, if you use us to help you create content to get you more business to where you can help people and serve people, then that's what we want to do.
Sure.
So
yeah, I love that. And it's like, you could help 5 people, but those 5 people might be able to help 10 people each. So really the most impact on the world. I love that.
Yeah.
Tell me about a life motto that you live by, or what is some of the best advice you've ever received?
So really what I kind of talked about earlier is not dwelling on the past and just staying more focused on the present, so that in the future you can be proud of what you've done today. It's kind of my new mantra, I guess.
Yeah. No, I love that too. What is a habit that you've developed over the past few years that has most improved your life?
It's definitely not fitness, which that's probably a habit I'd need to focus on. But when you say the word habit, I just go to physical things.
Sure.
I think most people do. But I have created a habit to where I fast from Monday through Friday. I'll fast from like 8 p.m. the night before to at least 11 o'clock a.m. the next day. So I'm not a huge breakfast guy. If I'm invited to breakfast, of course I'll break fast and go eat and I actually did it this morning. So
yeah.
But that's one thing that's really helped me kind of stay in shape without having to hit the gym every day. Yep. And so, which I do know I need to do, but
yeah, I've been a big proponent of intermittent fasting for a long time. So,
good.
I agree with that for sure.
Cool.
Again, if it's like I'm making pancakes for the girls, okay, I'm gonna eat some pancakes.
Right.
I try to. But Okay, now the last couple questions are specifically about Wichita. So what is your favorite part of Wichita, or what is a hidden gem that people might not know about?
I love that we have so many different cultures here in Wichita. And I feel like on the good months where we're having good weather, I mean, it's cold now, but once it starts warming up in the spring and summer, we're going to have this festival and that festival, just talking about different cultures, whether it be African-American, Asian, Mexican culture, and man, the food that comes with that, it's just so good. And I just really look forward to those times when those festivals start popping up.
Absolutely. And it is very diverse here. I don't think people, if you just came to Wichita, I don't think you'd realize until you kind of dive in, like how many Lebanese people are here, or apparently how many people from El Salvador are here, because there's a bunch of pupusa places on the same street. So there's an El Salvador grocery store. Like apparently there's enough people to support that. I had no idea until this week about that. So it's very interesting. You mentioned on your Hard-Headed podcast, you do like a top 3. Do you have a top 3 restaurants you would recommend to somebody if they came to Wichita and didn't know anything?
Oh yeah. Well, number 1, like you have to go to Little Saigon. That is one of my favorite restaurants. Another place that I like to frequent is the Anchor, because I think they have one of the best Reubens on the planet. Okay. I mean, that thing is so good, and they have those homemade chips that you can eat. So good. And I guess a third one, I like, and it's right next to the Anchor. It's in the meat market. The Argentina's empanadas.
Oh, yeah.
They are so good for a quick lunch. You just bop in there. It takes her about 8 minutes to heat it all up, and they put it in a little box. You get to pick 3 of them. They have dessert ones as well, and they give you a little sauce with it, chips and a Coke. It's like $10.50. Dude, I love it. It's right down the street from here.
Oh, yeah. Carolina makes the best empanadas. Yeah, those are amazing.
They are phenomenal.
For sure. Is there anything you wish Wichita had that it doesn't, or what would you improve about Wichita?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's anything I'd improve. I don't know. I should have thought about this.
No, that's great. Put you on the spot. I think I've obviously had the chance to ask a bunch of people this and stuff, but I think my biggest thing is that we just don't utilize the river like we should. Like, why don't we have a little strip with 4 restaurants right on the river or something like that? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That's kind of where my mind goes. But
no, I did see like I know we have Exploration Place, but what could we do to bring something like the science tech thing? It was in your update, wasn't it?
Science City.
Yeah, Science City.
In Kansas City, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. If we could do more things like that.
Right.
That are more kid focused.
Absolutely.
I think that would be.
Yeah.
And
really Exploration Place is incredible. So if you haven't been there in a while, everybody go. But I agree.
Absolutely.
How do we get more of that type of stuff instead of, I understand where the business seed comes from for some things, but for background, I wrote a deep dive for the Wichita Life Update about Union Station and what we could do with it, because it's been a call center for the last however many years. And I'm like, okay, that seems like a big waste of a really cool building.
Right.
But from Occidental Management, who manages it, makes sense. They wouldn't have been able to spend $50 million on renovations without a huge, big company contract.
Right.
But
what else could we do?
We need to do better.
Yeah.
Last question. What does Wichita mean to you?
Wichita, since we've been here, it has been like probably the best place we could have moved to raise a family. I feel like there's so many good opportunities for kids here, whether it be in the public school, private school sector. There's tons of extracurriculars. Sports are a huge thing here. I just think there's not a better place we could have moved for having kids. And when we moved here, God knew what he was doing, because when we moved here, we had one kid. She was 1 year old. And on the trip up here, my wife, kind of figured out number 2 was on its way.
Wow.
And now we have 5 kids together. And yeah, like I said, this is probably the best place in the country we could have moved to raise a family. So
I love it.
Yeah.
He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate you coming on, Troy. Where can people find Trussell Media, Live Local?
So Trussell Media is just trussellmedia.com, and Trussell Media is our handle across all social media platforms. And then Live Local, livelocalict.com is the website, but you can find us if you just search for Live Local in YouTube, we'll pop up.
Perfect.
And also on Instagram and Facebook as well.
Perfect. And I'll make sure to link all that up, but I appreciate you coming on. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Landon.
Have a good one.